Hey, welcome to Trucks. I got a great show for you today because I'm dealing with a subject that I get a lot of requests for, metalwork. Now, the reason that this is so important is that most trucks are in pretty rough shape. They've been used hard, they've been abused. Heck, this one even got drafted. And by the time somebody starts to work on them, there is some damage and some rust that really needs to be dealt with. Now, replacement panels, they might be available. Then again, they may not be available. So today I'm going to show you how to make your own replacement panels for some of the biggest problem areas on a truck and show you some really cool tools at the same time. Okay, without a doubt, one of the main areas that is prone to rust on any vehicle is what is known as a dog leg. Now that would be the area around the windshield or around the lip of the fender or up under the cab or the rocker, or even into the door jambs. Now the reason that these are so bad is that each one of these areas create a little shelf that can hold water, moisture, whatever, and that of course will cause rust. So I'm going to show you how to make a replacement panel for these areas. First thing you want to do is take your tape measure and measure the area that you're going to replace. Now as you can see, this is very solid. I'm not going to replace this, but I am going to use it as an example. Now transfer your measurements to a piece of 18 gauge sheet metal and cut it out. Follow that with a trip to the sheet metal brake. Now this will allow us to put a 90-degree bend into the metal. Now we're going to move on to a tool called the shrinker stretcher. Now what this does is it actually shrinks or stretches the metal along this edge, and that allows you to form the panel to whatever contour that you want. Almost there. We need a little more bend right in here. Oh, look at that. A perfect replacement panel. Now all you've got to do is put it in. Now, some of you may be tempted to take some shortcuts here and weld or rivet this panel over the top of the old rusty piece and then just smooth out the ends with some filler. Oh no, don't do that. That's hacking. Don't do that. What you need to do is cut out the old piece and weld the new piece in so it's nice and flush, looks good, it'll be strong, and it will last as long as that old original piece did. Now, we need to move on to an area that really does need some help on this truck, and that's that gaping hole that used to be a floor. But first, I need to get these seats out of here. Oh, that is nasty. Look out. Oh. There it comes. Oh, that's nasty. Have a seat, Mo. Oh man, there's some stink happening in there. Oh. Whoa.
Oh, shoot, man.
That's stink. You still rolling?
I'm getting out of here.
Hey, if I gotta be here, you gotta be here.
It's disgusting, Stace.
All right, now that the nasty stuff is done, we can move on to the floors. Now, most of you know that floors are one of the main areas that you're going to find some problems on a truck, especially an old one like this. But if replacement panels are available, well, you're already halfway there. And I showed you how to put those in on the Crazy Horse project. But what if they're not available? Easy, you get to make your own. Now, since every floor pan project is a little different, the key here is to decide what you want the floor to do. Besides, keep your feet off the transmission. In other words, do you want it to mount flush? Do you want to roll beads around it? Do you want a removable panel for the transmission? Are you going to stay with a standard shift? Are you going to an automatic? There's a lot of things here, and the only way to answer these questions is to look at the floor and lay out the project before you get started. Now, you may remember that our old 41 Dodge has no floor, but that's not because of rust. No, matter of fact, this is a very solid cab, perfect raw materials. Where it does need some help is this removable panel that originally gave you access to the battery and the transmission is gone. And the chances of finding one are like impossible. So we are going to make that panel, and it's going to be better than what came from the factory. Take a look at this. This lip is recessed about 3/4 of an inch, and you have threaded holes that held down the original floor. So we're going to start by building a perimeter frame out of 3/4 inch square tubing. Now, to bend that tubing, I'm going to use this tubing bender that we got from Woodward Fab, and it is perfect for these smaller projects. Look at this. You have dies and rollers to do everything from 3/8 round tubing all the way up to 7/8 round tubing. And you can also do 2 different sizes of square tubing. Now all you've got to do is pick the die that you need to use, slide it onto the spindle, put your roller onto the bending arm, put the arm on the spindle, slide in your piece of tubing, and then pull on this sucker for all you're worth. All right, we've got the sides and the back of our framework done. Time to take a break, but when we come back, I'm going to finish up the front and show you how to cover it with sheet metal. Oh, you don't want to miss that. Welcome back to Trucks, where today's show is about working metal and building custom replacement panels for your project. Now, I've already shown you how to build a piece like this. This will replace areas around the windshield or in the door jambs or in the lip of the fender, all problem areas. Now I'm in the middle of building a custom replacement floor for that 41 Dodge, which has no floor. Now that we've got all our pieces cut, it's time to see how they fit. Now, an important thing to remember, anytime you are doing patch panel work, you need to make it fit your application. Don't expect it just to drop into place, especially something as old as this that's been hacked on by who knows who. Now, be prepared to do a little bit of hammering, a little bit of twisting, a little bit of bending to get everything to fit right, because it is this step here, all this pre-fitting, that's going to decide just how nice all this is going to go together. Look at that. Once all your fitting is done, you'll need to tack weld it all together. Now this is where a MIG is really nice because it is so quick and easy. With the structure all tacked together, it's time to finish weld all the seams. Now on seams this tight and neat, I prefer the preciseness of a TIG welder. But if all you have is a MIG, it will do a fine job too. We'll follow that up by smoothing down the welds, and then you'll be ready to set the frame in place and see what you have. All right. Look at this. Perfect fit. But I'm not done yet. I still have a couple of shifters coming up through the floor, and I would like to have access to them without taking out this whole floor piece. So I am going to build a removable panel over these shifters. First, we'll build the framework around the shifters. Then, finishing up by adding bracing to tie it all together and make it very strong. Once your framework is done and all your seams welded up, it is time to cover it with sheet metal. I'm going to take care of that after the break. Welcome back to Trucks. Today I'm showing you some of the tools and techniques that it takes to do some quality metal fabrication on your project. Now, I'm right in the middle of building some floors for this old Dodge that's been given up on by everybody, including the junkyard. Now, when I left off, I built this framework to go in the opening of the floor. Now, it's time to cover this thing with sheet metal. First, we'll lay the frame on the metal and trace around the perimeter and all of the braces. Then cut it out with shears and a jigsaw. Okay, you probably know that there is not much strength in a flat piece of sheet metal, especially the bigger it gets. So, to give us some more strength, here in between these braces, you can see where I've laid out some lines where we're going to roll some beads. And we're going to do that with a bead roller. Now, a bead roller is a machine that allows you to roll a bead into a piece of sheet metal without distorting it by running it through the rollers as you rotate the handle. Now, the magic of one of these things is that you can follow just about any design you can imagine by rotating the metal as you turn the crank. You can do flames, scallops, heck, you can literally write your name. Now, this particular roller is from a place called Machines and More, and it is unique in a lot of different ways. First of all, it's got precision gears and bearings and dies for years of trouble-free service. Then you've got a nice deep throat here so you can get some big pieces in there and work them. And then it's constructed out of heavy gauge square tubing. That way these dies aren't going to flex on you when you're rolling your bead. That will give you a nice, straight, true bead. Now all we have to do is roll the beads following our pattern, then punch holes in the outer edge where the framework is going to meet the skin. Follow that by welding the skin to the frame, and finally dress the welds. And that takes care of the main floor. Now let's go see how this thing fits. Oh man, that is awesome! Now, the only thing we have left to do is to make an access panel for our shifters to come through. So, we'll take some measurements, and then we'll make a template out of cardboard. Now all we need to do is transfer this pattern to a piece of sheet metal. Now you could use a jigsaw, but I've got a much better tool that's going to blow your mind. This is called the Trace-A-Punch, and it's from Heck Industries. Now basically this is a motorized punch that will allow you to cut whatever shape you want into a piece of sheet metal. Check this out. Now as you can see, these are very neat, very clean, precise, burr-free cuts. You can't do that with a jigsaw. Now you can use the Trace-A-Punch freehand like I just did, but it really comes into its own when you use it to follow a pattern. All you do is clamp your template down onto a piece of sheet metal, set the depth of your dies to follow the pattern, and then just put it in and cut it out. If you're a fabricator, you need this tool. All right, let's take a look at what we have here. This is our access panel to cover the shifters. Now notice we've got our holes cut for the shifters to come through. I punched some holes around the perimeter, that way we can hold it in place with screws. Then I ran some beads in it, not only to give it strength, but also so it will match the rest of the floor. Look at this. And that looks like it came from the factory that way. And that is what you're after. Now, chances are you're not going to have to build a floor for a 41 Dodge, but the tools and techniques that I've shown you today, you can use on almost any project that you tackle. And it is a much better investment to buy the tools and do it yourself than to pay somebody to do it for you. Now, I know a lot of you guys are thinking, man, that metalworking stuff is really cool, but why are you spending so much time on this old truck? This is such a piece of junk. Well, maybe, but if you can't see the potential in this old rig, well, you just haven't been watching trucks enough. Trust me, I have got plans for this thing. Big plans. Really big plans. Bigger than you can imagine. And if you're wondering what those plans are, you're just going to have to keep watching trucks. When you're working on your classic truck project, and you've got the engine in, and the drivetrain's done, and all the suspension's done, and it looks like you're coming down that final stretch, that's where a lot of people get stalled, because they forget about those little detail things. And even worse, where do you find them? Well, I've got a name for you, Saxy's Rod Shop. Take a look at the stuff we've got for an upcoming project. We've got side mirrors, we've got interior and exterior door handles, gas pedal, we've got all kinds of weather stripping. We have some window channel. We have headlight conduit. Man, these guys have everything all the way up to frames and chassis. Take a look at the size of this catalog. Now, this isn't just junk either. This is good stuff. This is SoCal Speed Shop and Billet Specialties and Low Car. But the best part is you only need to remember one name to get all this. Saxy's Rod Shop. Take a look at it. Look how it's spelled. Write it down so you don't forget it. With the prices of new trucks and SUVs going higher and higher every day, well, it's not surprising people are trying to hold on to their rigs longer and expecting them to last a little longer. But once you get over 100,000 miles, well, your lubrication needs change in your engine. That is why Haviland has come out with this high mileage oil. Now, this has special seal conditioners that keep your gaskets and seals from deteriorating. Of course, that can cause oil leaks and oil consumption. So, if you want to squeeze every mile that you can out of your old engine, Haviland can help you do that. That's going to do it for today. We'll see you next week.